Staying in Europe, UEFA will turn to new technology to try and avoid the issues with VAR that have plagued the sport. UEFA will adopt the use of electronically chipped soccer balls for Euro 2024 in Germany, hoping to improve the accuracy of semi-automated offside VAR decisions while also providing additional tracking data for players. The same technology was used at the 2022 Men's World Cup. UEFA Champions League uses semi-automated offside but does not use chipped soccer balls. Nico, we talked a lot about this last week. Do you like the idea of using chipped soccer balls, and why do you think the leagues have been slow to adopt this new technology?
I would imagine that it's expensive. By the way, FIFA did this at the World Cup. This is when semi-automatic offsides was one of the first things implemented in the sport. And to be honest, at the end of the day, did it make that big of a difference? I thought that it was more of a selling point and PR rather than quick, efficient offside. There were still certain offside moments. For example, Lautaro Martinez against Saudi Arabia, a decision that took a long time. And obviously for semi-automatic offside, I would imagine the chip is to determine the first point of contact with the ball, not to measure how far in front of the second to last defender the player is, right? Still, I feel like then we get the graphic, and like 5 minutes later, whatever helps make the game more efficient and quicker, I'm all for. This is not my issue with VAR.
Yeah.
My issue is with the subjective calls now, as opposed to something that's more objective as to whether the ball crossed the line in completion or not. Did the ball go out of bounds in completion or not? To determine the first point of contact for offside. So Fußballliebe, Liebe means love in German, so it's Fußball, football love. Sure, I love this. I think it's...
oh, you liebe it.
And I liebe it. As long as it's to make everything more efficient, sure.
Sure.
This is not going to solve any of the VAR issues I have.
He says, Julio, as a player, how do you feel about all of the technology that's being implemented?
Too much.
Yeah.
It's too much because I don't really see much improvement in the calls. There's still immense controversy, whether you're talking about VAR or you're talking about chips in the ball. Listen, at the end of the day, referees have to perform, players have to perform, coaches have to perform, and there's always going to be an element of human either error or rising up to the moment. No matter how much technology you implement, there's still going to be, at the end of the day, a human being has to make the right decision. And I think there's oftentimes a lot of blame that's put on referees, but I've never played in games, high profile, low profile, whatever, where I get the feeling that referees are trying to make the wrong call. So it's always going to be part of the game that the referees need to do what they do. And whether it's a chip in the ball or you get 100 different camera angles for VAR, referee still has to make the right call, and players got to do what they got to do.
What if we let the coaches throw challenge flags? Like
I like that idea.
Hold on, Nico's bought in. Not everyone laughed.
I've been a proponent from the beginning of VAR. I've been a proponent of the onus being on the manager instead of the referee, because now what we're getting is this over-scrutinizing. Anything can be reviewed at this point. It's clear and obvious. We're not even talking about clear and obvious anymore. We're talking about the smallest of infractions that when you look at it in slow motion on all the reverse angles that are meant for Spielberg and not for a referee to interpret things in real time.
This guy's hitting Spielberg.
It's almost like it's being manipulated for the referees to call the game that they want to call and through a monitor, not the game that they're willing to see. So this chip conversation and UEFA trying to take strides into technology, for me it's more PR than anything else, because
it's the right approach, though. We would be chastising them if they weren't trying.
The World Cup did it. This is objective calls. This is goal line technology. It's in that same vein. This isn't if you told me all of that investment is going to give referees more practice and more tools and more for their objective calls, I don't know. It's just kind of like brushing it up.
Here's what I say: 2 challenges, you lose a sub if you get it wrong.
No, you lose the challenge.
subs.
One challenge per half and you lose it. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And if you can challenge something objective, you can. But if the referee, to his discretion, doesn't agree with you, you lost the challenge.
I
and
like
then
what
you
I
can't,
said more.
And then you can't challenge anymore that half.
But my thing is, what is actually objective? It always comes down to a decision. It's always going to come down to interpretation.
Yeah, I meant to say subjective.
Oh,
excuse
okay.
me. Yeah.
But still, it's always going to come down to, okay, at this moment, you could have a point of contact technology in the ball. Okay, but at the same time, the referee still has to, the linesman or woman has to decide, was the player in front of the second to last defender?
Right.
There's
And
always
it's going to
something.
take forever anyway. If you get one of those half of the shoulder offside, like we got in the World Cup, it was imperceptible to the naked eye, the offside that...
But then that becomes subjective as well. I just say bring all robots. No more refs. All AI.
Tell Christina Uncle that.
Okay? Christina
seriously.
Uncle, learn the code. I'm sorry. All AI. Everything is computers.
I mean, you're kind of onto something, though, because it does feel like we just keep implementing more and more and more in order to simplify, when it's kind of having the opposite effect, at least in what we've seen recently. Do you think that there's a world that exists where we start to kind of retract and pare back a little once because I feel like they've invested so much money in this technology to make it simpler, but is it a bad look to then kind of say, you know what, we're going to kind of go back to the...
I go back to the World Cup, for example, the Frank Lampard shot against Germany that hits the crossbar, bounces in, and Neuer takes it off the line. And we were thinking, goal line technology would have helped England in that moment. They were robbed of that call. There's certain moments like a clear handball, Diego Maradona against England. And then there are so many things.
I know, right? Even
That's on air.
Oh, no, on air. Jamie Carragher has taken over. Jamie Carragher has taken over Nico. Control of Nico.
Technology for those types of calls will work.
Yeah.
But now we're using technology for
everything.
In the 4 situations that you can use it, we're using it almost every single.
There's a store in New York City where you walk in, you grab what you want, and you walk out, and it's not stealing. It charges you. Why are we wasting time with what one guy doing this thinks in the middle
communication
of
is the problem.
Yeah, who cares? Let Amazon run. Jeff Bezos, save us from this.
Jeff Bezos.
Please help us. It's his store. It's his store. If you can figure that out, where I'm not stealing Doritos, you just charge my Amazon account, fix football.
Wow.